Number 10. Proverbs 31 verse 10. Who can find a virtuous woman? The writer seems to indicate that they are few and far between, because there would need to be a search. Who can find a virtuous woman? Her price is far above rubies. Verse 11. The heart of her husband does safely trust in her, that he shall have no need of spoil. I know that my wife will be taking care of the house. I know that when my children were coming up, that she was bringing correction to them, proper correction. She was making provisions for them, doing everything at the house that needed to be done. Verse 12 again, she will do him good and not evil all the days of his life. A virtuous and strong woman will do her husband good. Matter of fact, the glory that she will receive from God will be connected to how well she treats not only her children, but also her husband. God is looking at that. And let me say this, some people look at a woman as a second-class citizen. Thank God for the women. If we look at just women in this country, women that have been strong, women that have been brave and virtuous. I think about Betsy Ross, the flag that was provided for our young nation in its early years was provided by a woman. There's been a lot of times when a woman would stand because of her bravery, and even her husband would recognize that bravery, and he would realize that she would do him good. You know, there's so many, and I'm not going to pick on the younger women this morning, please bear with me, but there's so many times when I hear women, young women especially, complaining about their husbands. Do you know what the Bible tells us to do? Pray for them. And not only does the wife, the young mother, pray for her husband, but the young husband prays for the mother. They are a team together. Virtuous women. Verse 13 says, she seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. I wonder how many mothers that stay at home spend their time laying around watching television, letting the house go. I know a gentleman that Sandy and I visited his home several years ago. He had 3 children. The mother was a stay-at-home mom, and we were there somewhere around 4:30 in the afternoon, and one of the children was asking for something to eat. That mother, who had been home all day, she looked at the child and said, your dad will be home in just a few minutes and he'll take care of supper. Let me tell you, ladies, if you stay at home, the house needs to be clean. Pastor, you're meddling now. The house needs to be clean. The supper needs to be prepared. I'm not going to ask you to do what my wife does for me. Ever since I've been married, if I got up to go to work, my lovely little wife would be up with me. She would make sure, even if I didn't ask, even if I didn't want it, she would have my breakfast ready. She would have my lunch packed, and she would make sure that I had at least a few dollars in my wallet in case I needed it. Boy, how many women and young mothers pull that deal for their husbands? Thank God. You do, Linda. You do. Praise God for you. Young ladies, this is the thing that demonstrates the virtue. I've had funerals for elderly women. And I've heard people talk about, well, she was that woman that was mentioned in Proverbs chapter 31. And some of them, I would know that would be the pattern and the lifestyle that they live. But I would think on some others, I might think that she, and without judging, I'm thinking their definition of virtuous doesn't feel my definition of a virtuous woman. A virtuous woman that's full of strength, brave, she is selfless. She doesn't think about herself. She's always, if you'll read through this entire chapter, you see that she's always doing something for somebody else. She's never looking for credit. She's never looking for somebody to pat her on the back. But she's just doing things for people that she loves. Never take it for granted what your wife does for you, guys. Never take it for granted. And wives, thank you for filling the role of a virtuous woman, making sure that your husband is looking at you and he's being blessed. Verse 14 says, she is like the merchant ships. She bringeth food from afar. She makes sure that there's provisions on the table for her children. She rises also while it is yet night, giveth meat to her household and a portion to her maidens. I wonder how many women in our day remain in the bed while their husbands get up, take care of their meals, make their way to the job site, never realizing that their responsibility as a wife and as a mother is to make sure that the children and the husband is well taken care of. That's a virtuous woman. Verse 16, she considereth a field or anything, and she buys it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth vineyards. She takes care of everything around the house. She's making sure that there's provisions and everything is in its place. Verse 17, she girdeth her loins with strength and strengtheneth her arms. That doesn't mean she lifts weights and stays at the gym all the time. It's all right, ladies, to spend time at the gym. You need to try to look as good for your husband as you possibly can. And he needs to do the same for you, okay? I know that there's a lot of husbands that look at their wife and they say, oh, you're getting a little heavy. And he's got one of these big things right here. And he's about as flabby as flab could be. And then he looks at her and says, you're getting a little heavy, hon. It's important that we take care of ourselves physically. I believe that's a blessing to have good health. But more so taking care of the things that we need to take care of that would be considered spiritual things and things that God would expect us to do. Verse 18, she perceiveth that everything that she has, her merchandise is good, her candle goeth not out by night. She makes sure everything's taken care of before she goes to bed. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. Anything that needs to be done, she takes care of it. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. Not only is a mother, not only does she have a heart for her children, but a true mother has a heart for anyone that is in need, or anything that's in need. Let me use that term. My wife and I was kind of drafted into this. My wife started feeding a family of cats behind the food depot near our house. I was drafted by her into that skill, and I assist her in that. We arrived just a few days ago, and we heard there's about 18 cats. But she heard a kitten, and there's a big culvert. She had me to lift the lid off the cupboard. The culvert. How many of you know how heavy one of those round steel? I reached down there and she said, help it, help it. And I'm just trying to get the lid off the top of the thing. But her heart goes out for that cat. Because see, that's part of the mothering thing. There's other ladies here that might do the same thing, whether you like cats or not. You don't like to see anything that's suffering. Verse 21, let me start there. She's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. I've told you this on several occasions, but when my children were coming up, August, school just starting, I'm just trying to put groceries on the table. Everything that I'm bringing home is being consumed, seemingly. And Sandy looks at me in August when it's 90 degrees outside, and she says, the kids are going to have coats this year. And I'm thinking, coats? Why, it's 90 degrees outside. You see, my thinking is to take care of today. And most men are like that. We're going to take care of what's at hand. But the woman, the virtuous woman, she's going to reach out and look ahead and see the things that need to be done. Make sure that the children have everything that they need. Let me read that again, verse 22. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Verse 21. She's not afraid of the snow, for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. They're taken care of. Verse 23. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. When the writer penned that, the time was a little different than it is now. Of course, we know that. And when I apply this verse to today, everything that's a virtuous woman, a wife or a mother, is saying about her husband is going to be stuff that is positive. In the eyes of other people, he's going to be built up. He's going to be encouraged. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago, and I want you to listen when I say this. The thing that a woman needs more than anything else, it's not love. Sometimes we think it's love, but it's not. A proven factor is that the thing that a woman needs more than anything else is security. She needs security. The thing that a man needs more than anything else is respect. Respect. The woman that is his wife could lead the way in causing other people to look at the husband with respect and say, that's a man of honor. Simply because what she's saying, the actions that she's taken. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. They know this guy is a pretty good guy. Verse 24, she maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchants. Anything that she can get her hands on to provide for her family, she will utilize it. Verse 25, strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. I think if there's anything that needs, or if there's things that need to be taught to most young ladies in our day, is that they need to take care of the household. Sandy's got this saying, everything that's in the house, inside the house, belongs to me. I will take care of everything inside the house. And very seldom, I will help her clean and do things on occasions. But those of you that know my wife, she cleans 24 hours a day. I can't invest that much time in it, Ron. But one thing that she does, she takes care of what's inside the house, and she'll tell me. She says, the outside belongs to you. The color of the house, that's your choice. The yard, the landscape, the shrubbery, that's your choice. But she always lets me know, inside the house belongs to her. She will do and set up like she wants done, because that's her house. Ladies, you need to look at that like that. That's your responsibility. This is what I am accountable for, according to the writings of the virtuous woman. Verse number 28 again. Her children arise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Most people look at this book of Proverbs as being written by Solomon. Solomon was the son of King David and Bathsheba. All of us have heard the story concerning the adulterous relationship between King David and Bathsheba. David was out on his porch in the palace and looked down one day and saw this beautiful young lady bathing. And she eventually became his wife, Bathsheba. They had an adulterous relationship. Not just her fault, but King David's fault. As they grew up together, eventually they had Solomon. Solomon's mother was an adulterous woman. Her father was a king that committed adultery. But now we find that Solomon eventually, as he grew older, penned this book, the book of Proverbs. He's looking at his mother, and it's his writing, particularly concerning his mother, that has been so important. But I want you to know verse 28 was probably not initiated by Solomon, the son, but probably by David, the husband. He says, her children rise up and call her blessed, and I, as her husband, also will praise her. David probably said concerning Bathsheba, many daughters have done virtuously, but honey, you excel them all. You're better than anything that I've ever seen. Favor is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gate. I want to sum this up. Virtuous woman is a woman that's taking care of the business around the house. She's taking care of her children. There might be some outside activities that she's taking care of, but she realizes that her main focus is on the house. After World War II, most of the young women, because of the war, and it was justifiable, they took a job outside of the home to assist soldiers that were on the battlefield. They were building airplanes. They were doing a little bit of everything. But that began a process in this country that carried the mother and the woman out of the house. And I will say this to you as your pastor. Oftentimes, the demand is that the mother or the wife and the father, the dad, both work together. Both, because it's hard to make it with just one income. But I believe, personally, that it would be God's will and God's best plan is for the mother to be able to stay at home with her children, to take care of a house, the money that she could save. I remember my mother, when we were growing up, of course times were different, but mother could take $15 or $20, and it would take $15 or $20 to buy groceries, and it would take 4 or 5 of us children carrying 2 bags apiece to get it all in the house. You can't do that now, ladies. I realize that. But there was something about my mother that would work out every deal. She would find every deal. Have you seen these women that do clippings? How many of you ladies do coupons? All right, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm not a coupon pusher myself, but I think it's something. I've seen women go into the grocery store and spend several hours and save enough money, almost to have paid their wages if they would have worked a job outside the house that day, simply because they were taking care of what the husband was providing. Most of the time now, fast food is the order. Ladies, it's cheaper to provide for a large family standing over the stove and cooking a